morning. Today, with ringing our peace bowl, we affirm our collective hope for peace. We acknowledge that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people. This morning, we join the country in remembering former President Jimmy Carter and the social justice work he did for so many people. Our hearts go out to the thousands of people in California who have lost their homes from several horrific fires. We also turn our thoughts to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights work he did in the name of peace and love. Please enjoy our gathering music today, which is Amazing Grace. Lovely. Thank you, Lena. Well, good morning to everyone here and on Zoom. Hi there. And welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Leslie Grady, your worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all, and we're glad you're here to join us. We're happy to see some new faces at Granite Peak each week. Welcome. If any of you would be comfortable standing and introducing yourself to the congregation, that would be great. And Reverend Roger here will come out and greet you. All right, great. Hi there.
Welcome. Tell us your name and where you're from, and here's a pin with the church's name on it.
Whoa.
Where are you from?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Welcome. Good to have you here. And your name is Betty. All right. And look at this. You're not new, right?
No.
Oh, good. Okay. There you go. And you're from Phoenix. Yes. Now Dewey. All right. Well, welcome. Good to have you here. And your name is Ginny. Yes. And where are you from?
We're from Oregon.
Oregon. And your name is?
I'm Fred, and this is Marty.
Marty. Okay. Thank you for coming. This is a gift with the for having you come here, and it has the website of the church, so you can find out more about us. And where are you from?
I'm a third-generation native to Prescott.
You're from Prescott, third generation. My goodness. And your name is?
Shantae.
Shantae, welcome. Good to have you here. And all the visitors sit on this side for some reason. Did I miss anybody? Welcome to everyone. If you didn't want to stand up, that's fine. We're still glad you're here, and we invite you to stay after the service for the coffee hour in the other room. This is, if you've come to other churches, we have the longest coffee hour of any church I've ever worked in. And it goes on for about an hour. It is really a lot of fun. You get to know people better. And of course, if you're a regular and you see one of the visitors, please welcome them and make them feel at home.
Thank you. Well, like he said, after the service, we'll be sharing refreshments and visiting in Davis Hall, and hope you'll join us. In our work and ministry here at Granite Peak, we utilize the principles of our mission statement, which reads as follows. We are a compassionate, spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We thank our pianist Lena Huben, Martin Bramall on AV, Brian Willison, our Sunday management coordinator, and all our Sunday morning volunteers. Please take a moment to set your phones on worship mode. Well, we have a lot of announcements. There's numerous ways to learn about the activities and events of our congregation. Information is available on our website at prescottuu.org. All of the weekly news is in the emailed Weekly Peak newsletter, and more can be found in our monthly newsletter, The View, copies of which are on the welcome table in the foyer. You can also pick up copies of today's announcements there. Sandra Palacios, the Children's Faith Development Coordinator, teaches children ages 5 and up at the Education Building across the street. Dr. King said, "I've always been a dreamer, but the only dreams I can remember are the ones I dream with my eyes wide open." Today, the children will learn and discuss that every good thing starts with a dream. We will talk about Martin Luther King and his dream of an oasis of freedom and justice. Now, before the service, she also told me the exciting news that Steve Lovejoy and Mary Fran Bennett got the baby Jesus in the cake last week, the Rosca. And this means they are going to give the Faith Department students a pizza party on February 2nd for the celebration of Calendaria. So she's just outstanding. So that's so much fun, and congratulations to Stephen and Mary Fran. Well, remember next Sunday, the 19th, is the Prescott Peace Builders movie with meaning titled Joan Baez, I Am Noise. It's at 1:30 at the library, and I really hope you come. If some of you have seen the Bob Dylan movie, you know Joan Baez was a big influence in his life, but also civil rights and social justice. She is and she has been a leader in that. Well, then Monday is our MLK March, starting at 10 a.m. at Prescott College, followed by the celebration ceremony at the Prescott United Methodist Church. Prescott Peace Builders and MLK Committee are just working hand in hand and planning events through the year. So I hope you are there. And now we have Rick Denny to say a few words. Oh. Okay.
I sneaked in at the last minute. Well, speaking of dreams, as many of you know, many have been dreaming about what this room could look like for many years, and we really are on the cusp of a major transformation, which is going to increase the sense of height and sense of sanctuary here. About 13 people who have been more recently involved in the development of the plan for the sanctuary met with the builder on Friday, and we had a lot of questions. Some of we had thought ourselves, others had been suggested to us. And so here's the following information. I think I will just read a little bit of it and then make some comments. So 13 of us met with the contractor to answer questions regarding an estimate that the builder has come up with. He has consulted with all of his subcontractors, in fact, multiple subcontractors in each of the different areas, electrical, demolishment, and building, and so forth. This is the architect's drawing that I think you have seen before. We have shown before that the building would look like according to the architect. And I do want to emphasize that in discussing with the builder, there are some possible modifications that may be made to this. So this is not necessarily the absolute final structure, but in terms of the height and the shape of the structure, this is very much what it would look like from the outside. I think, Martin, do you also have an interior rendering? Yeah, the interior, this is an interior rendering, again, of the architectural design. Whoa, you see, it's going to be much bigger sometimes and much smaller others. It's shaped according to your desires. So there are details yet to be worked out in terms of the exact details of, for example, the architect has suggested these pendant lights, but these are not necessarily the final ones. We're still in the process of looking, but he has included that, and in fact, we're still working on that issue. One of the major things that we asked was we have been thinking in terms of meeting in Davis Hall during the approximately 4 month or so, 4 to 5 months is what the builder again said that he was confident that it could be done once it was started. It had been the simplest thing for us to do, I think, would be to meet in Davis Hall. And there are a number of questions with regard to that. Is it safe? Is there enough space? I think the sense, well, first of all, the architect says, without question, that it would be safe. They would basically be walling off that door so that it would be sealed. This sanctuary would be sealed from the foyer, F-O-Y-E-R, foyer, and Davis Hall. They also would seal any vents that would allow air supply going into that. We currently, when we ask for or offer to rent the Davis Hall, which we frequently do and actually get income from that, we basically say that it is sufficient for 125 people. We very rarely, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen 125 people at services. The other thing that he said was that all of their staging would be out on this end of the building, so that most of the parking lot and certainly the back and the front they would be very careful not to impede the entry to the building. So he straightforward asked, is it safe? Are there any safety concerns? He says, in his opinion, no. So you can take that for what it's worth, but that is his expert opinion. So finally, the figure that the builder has come up with in detailing all the different work was $689,000. Which is $89,000 more than the congregation had originally agreed on. But recall that we are talking also about a somewhat higher building than had originally been planned. That actually will not cost that much more, in fact, to add the extra height. And there also are some things that could possibly be done that would reduce the price. There also are some things that aren't in that bid. For example, the cost of these pendant lights is not part of the bid because that's not something he will do. Any of us would be happy to discuss issues later. Russ Erickson, Monty Ford, they're just Fred Krapps. There are just many of us. Dick Walter, I can't enumerate all, but you can find us at the coffee hour, and we're certainly happy to discuss details. Thanks. The vote is still not scheduled in detail. There's one thing that the builder has said is that he's pretty flexible as to start date, and one consideration has come up that we probably need to try to get the auction done before it starts. So they thought. The rummage sale before it starts. So this we're kind of thinking rather than starting 1st of February, maybe closer to the 1st of March, but not a huge delay. But we'd like to get the money in from the rummage sale before the sanctuary is disassembled. So we certainly will make an announcement about the start date and the meeting, the congregational meeting before very long. So that's where we stand. Thanks. Sorry to take so much time.
That's okay. Thank you, Rick. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Mary Steenhoek. Today we light the chalice with these words. In these wild, historic, and uncertain times, we gather to remember who we are and what we are called to do. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the great turning, the movement for justice, alive in this nation today. In Dr. King's words, he reminds us, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? May we feel moved to do what we can to bring peace and social justice to Prescott and the world around us.
Hope brings us here. Hope of inspiration, hope of comfort, hope of enlightenment, hope of love. This is a house of hope. Let's stand as you're able to do so and sing our first hymn, number 156, O Freedom. Freedom over me. Before I lift my slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. No more moaning, no more moaning, no more moaning over me. Before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. They'll be singing, they'll be singing, they'll be singing over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. I invite you to join with me in the covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here this week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is Prism Network. Please read about them in your order of service. To contribute online, please visit our website, prescottuu.org. Please enjoy our offertory music, Gonna Lay Down My Sword and Shield, an African American spiritual performed by Lena Hubin. Thanks, Lena. We acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. Our beloved community is the heart of Granite Peak Congregation. As we experience a time of meditation and music, we will take a few moments to silently acknowledge the joys and concerns of our hearts and our minds. If there is an event which moves you to joy or concern, hope or gratitude, I invite you to come forward and silently drop a pebble from this dish. We have 2 on either side, in our communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another. our joys and concerns, surrounded by the healing communal water of our beloved community, be acknowledged here today. May it be so. Please join me in singing Spirit of Life.
To those in Los Angeles who have lost their homes, I pray for the relief of gentle rain to quench the fire and clean the air. Amen. Let's join in this responsive reading. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. Let's sing We Shall Overcome. Stand as you're able to do so. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. Well, I need to idealize other people to be spiritually healthy. I need other people that I can admire. People whom I experience as wise and courageous, stable, reliable, calm. Throughout my life, I experienced this need to have people whom I can look up to. Although the people I idealize are not perfect, they still are an important source of the values that guide me. And one of the people I have idealized is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Along with others, I admire his preaching, his skill, his courage, his commitment to nonviolence. Each year, as his birthday approaches, I recall stories about his life. He was called to serve his first church in the summer of 1954 while he was completing his doctoral dissertation from the theological school at Boston University. The church he was called to was Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, located in the downtown square in Montgomery, Alabama, across from the state capitol building, the Alabama State Capitol building. The congregation of 300 was educated, middle class, liberal, and all black. They called King and hoped that he would be less controversial than their previous pastor, the Reverend Vernon Johns. Reverend Johns had shocked the congregation and the community by replacing the small sign in front of the church with a much bigger one, which he used to announce his sermon topics. He was called to the police station to explain himself when he announced the sermon title, Segregation After Death. He told the police that he did not believe there would be segregation after death because all the whites who supported segregation in this life were going to hell. A few months later, the Klan burned a cross in front of the church in reaction to the announced sermon topic on the sign, "It's safe to murder Negroes in Montgomery." Reverend Johns got in trouble with the congregation because of his spontaneous comments from the pulpit. One Sunday, heads turned to watch as Dr. Tremholm, the president of Alabama State College, the largest employer of Montgomery blacks in general, and of Dexter Baptist Church members in particular, Dr. Trenholm arrived late and eased himself into a pew. Reverend Vernon Johns said from the pulpit, "I want to pause here in the service until Dr. Trenholm can get himself seated here on his semi-annual visit to the church." Dr. Trenholm never returned to Dexter Church while Johns was the minister. The congregation hoped that Reverend King, being only 25 years old and serving his first church, would be more willing to take direction and advice from the church board. During the first 15 months of King's ministry, he got to know the people in the congregation. He preached on Sundays. He reorganized the administration and expanded the programming of the church. And he became friends with Ralph Abernathy, the young minister at First Baptist in Montgomery. Abernathy explained the difference between his church, First Baptist, and King's Church, Dexter Avenue Baptist. At First Baptist, you may talk about Jesus. At Dexter Baptist, they would prefer you talk about Plato or Socrates or somebody like that. And if you just have to mention Jesus, they would like you to do it just as quietly and briefly as possible. In other words, Dexter Avenue Baptist was a lot like our humanist congregation. These first 15 months of ministry, getting to know the church, getting to know the community, were the most serene and uncomplicated of Dr. King's adult life. The serenity ended in December of 1955 with King's election as president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. The evening of Monday, December 5th, 1955, the 26-year-old minister who had been called by his congregation and hoped that he would not be controversial spoke to 5,000 people about the Montgomery bus boycott. His words about the boycott showed his deep commitment to the dignity of every person. He said, "No one must be intimidated to keep them from riding buses. Our method must be persuasion, not coercion. We will only say to the people, let your conscience be your guide. Our actions must be guided by the deepest principles of the Christian faith. Once again, we must hear the words of Jesus. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, pray for those who despise you. If we fail to do this, our protest will end up as a meaningless drama on the stage of history, and its memory will be shrouded in the ugly garments of shame. If you protest courageously, and yet with dignity and Christian love, future historians will say, there lived a great people, black people, who injected new meaning and dignity into the veins of civilization. Well, within weeks, the boycott tested Dr. King's courage and his belief in nonviolence. The night of January 30th, 1956, in the middle of a speech to a mass meeting, he received word that his home had been bombed while his wife and his baby girl were inside. He left the speaker's platform and went home immediately. At the house, he found that his wife and child were all right. Around his home was a crowd of angry blacks. He spoke, I want you to go home and put down your weapons. We cannot solve this problem through retaliatory violence. We must meet violence with nonviolence. Remember the words of Jesus, he who lives by the sword will perish by the sword. Remember, if I am stopped, this movement will not be stopped, because God is with this movement. Go home with this glowing faith and this radiant assurance. Now, these moments are some of the finest moments in the history of American religion. Moments that speak of the dignity of all people and call on us to show courage, love, and nonviolence. Dr. King was a man of extraordinary courage and commitment to nonviolence. So I use the best of Dr. King's life as one guide for my own life. Just as some people approach the ethical dilemmas asking, well, what would Jesus do? Sometimes when I'm struggling with a problem, I ask myself, what would Dr. King do? For an answer, I look again at the speeches and the writings of Dr. King. In his last Sunday sermon delivered at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. in March of 1968, King said that he was convinced that Vietnam is one of the most unjust wars that had ever been fought in the history of the world. And following Dr. King's teachings in 1969, I registered with my Phoenix Draft Board as a conscious objector. To prepare for my draft board interview, I studied the lives and the writings of Dr. King and Gandhi. And from this study, I came to believe that no person has the right to take the life of another human being. Coupled with this idea was a religious belief that human beings are divine. Each person has the spark of divinity in their soul, which, if properly nurtured, could help them develop into sensitive, compassionate persons. Through kindness, understanding, and a willingness to become involved in the process personally, people can be changed. Their better, kinder, more compassionate side can be reached. Now, this approach to life and to people is not a naive one, blind to the existence of evil in this world. War is evil, poverty is evil, discrimination because of the color of a person's skin is evil. But so is an unwillingness to see the spark of divinity in each human being. That is also evil. Once I refuse to see this spark of divinity, I no longer have any desire to affect that person or that institution, except by force. As long as I hold my belief in the potential goodness of other people, no matter how corrupt that person might be, I at least have the possibility of restoring that individual, and I retain alive within myself my belief in humanity. So nonviolence, you see, is not just a technique to bring about social change. It is a positive approach to life. I learned this when I was a young person from the study of the life of Dr. King and people who inspired him. Well, while a student in California studying for the ministry, I was walking to the home where I was living when I was attacked on a sidewalk by an angry young man. He hit me in the side of the head with his fist so hard I was seeing double. My theoretical nonviolence was suddenly put to a practical test. I don't know what Dr. King would have done, but all I could think of was to say, I don't want to fight you. He swung his fist at me again. I stepped back. He missed me. I said again, I don't want to fight you. He paused from trying to hit me, and he said, why not? I don't, again, know what Dr. King would have said, but I said, I don't want to get hurt. He said, that's cool. And he walked away. I had missed an opportunity to explain Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence, but I was relieved that I had avoided a beating. In my first ministry in Lexington, Kentucky, following Dr. King's example of fighting discrimination, I joined with a community group to conduct fair housing testing. We documented real estate agents were discriminating against African Americans in our community, and we confronted the real estate board. And they, after a lot of pressure from the mayor of the city, who I give a lot of credit to, they reluctantly agreed to establish better training for all of their real estate agents. In my second ministry in New Bedford, Massachusetts, I asked myself what Dr. King would do, and I helped create an organization that we named the Ethnic Racial Alliance, bringing together Protestants and Catholics and Jews working for harmony within that city. In my third ministry in Evanston, Illinois, when the first President Bush prepared to invade Iraq, I asked myself, what would Dr. King do? I joined with other clergy in holding a meeting with our member of Congress, a Republican moderate member of Congress, Mr. Porter, urging him to oppose the coming war. I preached against the approaching war. I wrote letters. Of course, as a simple parish minister, nothing I said or did had any impact in stopping the war or saving a single human life. In my fourth ministry in Bethesda, Maryland, as the United States was preparing an invasion of Haiti in the mid-1990s, a member of my congregation stopped me at coffee hour as I was greeting people after the service. And he asked me what I would do regarding Haiti. Well, I'm no expert on Haiti, but in my mind, I asked myself, how would Dr. King answer this question? And I said that it's tempting to believe that an American military force could invade Haiti and set up a democracy, but it was more likely that the force would get bogged down and not be successful. I suggested instead increasing humanitarian aid through such organizations as the International Red Cross, that might be more effective, more helpful. The man said, I'm having lunch with my dad this afternoon. I will tell him what you said. I asked, well, who's your dad? He said, he's the Secretary of Defense. At least that month, we did not invade Haiti. In January of 1996, Secretary of Defense William Perry, he's in his 90s now, but still alive, who is a Unitarian Universalist, agreed to come to my church in Bethesda and talk about his primary work on Sunday morning, which was nuclear disarmament. I thought to myself, if we have to have a Secretary of Defense, it's better that he or she be a Unitarian Universalist. In September of 2001, I was still in Bethesda. I was invited by a reporter from CNN to suggest a nonviolent religious response to the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Well, what would Jesus do? Asked the reporter, as I sat in the CNN studio in Washington. I thought it would be the height of arrogance for me to claim I knew what Jesus would do. On the other hand, this was my chance to suggest an alternative to the planned full-scale American invasion of Afghanistan. And I thought about Gandhi. Gandhi believed that human societies need police, and sometimes it's necessary for police to use violence. In 1940, Gandhi wrote, I have conceded that even in a nonviolent state, a police force may be necessary. I have not the courage to declare that we can carry on without a police force. The police force would have some kinds of arms, but they would be rarely used. And I remember that Gandhi believed some people are dangerous to others and that they need to be kept in a humane but secure prison. In 1925, he wrote, I would not hesitate under the present state of society to confine thieves and robbers, confinement is itself a kind of punishment. I have no other remedy to suggest in such cases in the present state of society. Well, I didn't say all this to the TV reporter. I said, Christian believers in nonviolence feel that police are a necessary part of human society. I said that a terrible crime had been committed. The proper moral, ethical, Christian response was an international police investigation. As police identified the people who are guilty of these murderers, they should take these suspects into custody. The court should try them. If they are found guilty, the court should send them to prison for the rest of their lives. I said we should treat this attack the same way we treated the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City a few years before. When we learned that Timothy McVeigh had talked about his plans for his attack while staying in Kingman, Arizona, we did not bomb Kingman. In the same way, I do not think we should bomb or invade all of Afghanistan just because some people may have used camps in Afghanistan to train people who murdered over 3,000 Americans. I said if the Afghan government refuses to cooperate in arresting these individuals, as a believer in nonviolence, I would support an international police force made up of people from all countries who are willing to participate, to use necessary force to arrest those responsible. I left the CNN office in Washington and drove home, and I hoped that I had been true to the philosophy of nonviolence of Dr. King. Of course, nothing I said halted the violence or protected a single human life. Within 2 weeks, the United States invaded Afghanistan. But as you can see, Dr. King's principles of nonviolence have shaped my ministry and shaped my life. He was a man of great courage. Back in 1956, Dr. King's home was bombed with his wife and child inside, and his supporters gathered in front of his home ready to fight back. And he said, "I want you to go home and put down your weapons. We cannot solve this problem through retaliatory violence. We must meet violence with nonviolence. Remember the words of Jesus, 'He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword.'" Thankfully, I have never had to face such violence in my own life. Still, Dr. King gave me a model of how to live, not as a famous person, but as a simple parish minister. Every year at the time of his birth, I give thanks to a man who gave his life for the principles of freedom, equity, and love. And each year I renew my own commitment to do my best to follow his courageous commitment to nonviolence. Let's sing our closing hymn. Lift every voice and sing.
I wonder if Karen Denny wants to join me up here, because I don't know this very well.
This is also known as the Black National Anthem. Is that? Lift every voice and sing till every heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high in the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of every day, raising again, let us for joy to reach. Son of heaven's pride, bitter the chasing rod, felt in the days when hope was born and died. And with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that the tears have since watered. We have come
Thank you. Granted that the easygoing optimism of yesterday is impossible. Granted that we face a world crisis, which leaves us standing so often amid the surging murmur of life's restless sea. But every crisis has both its dangers and its opportunities. It can spell either salvation or doom. In a dark, confused world, the kingdom of God may yet reign in the hearts of men and women. Let's say together the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.